This episode may contain profanity, obscenities, and very strong language, and is not intended for all audiences. If you're a clicker, backpedaler, or a trash content creator, you may be triggered. Welcome everyone, and it is time for another blasting episode number 5. I am yours truly, Fark, and I am honored to be joined by the one and only Funky Music, aka Funky. What is up, brother? How are you doing? And let's do this, my guy.
Yeah, I'm good. Let's go.
Let's go, everyone. First and foremost, Funky, what have you been up to? We haven't had a chat for a while. What's new in the Warcraft universe? Ever so smaller and smaller, but still, do you have anything new that happened or any news that you heard about Warcraft? Or...
No, just like we were talking a little bit beforehand, I just wanted to confirm. So they're shutting down Classic TBC. That's a huge thing. I think we might talk about that today, but
yeah,
talking about shutting down Classic. No, I've just been working on the Druid guide and mainly spending my time on Discord. Other than that, I haven't really been.
How is your Druid guide progressing? And I've been meaning to ask you: is it tier 7 Druid guide, or is it like completely? Like, you know, overall every single tier / patch Druid guide?
It's everything from pre-nax, since we all know we're going to be level 70. It's pre-nax all the way up to Halion for everything, and then Teamy's working hard on the calculator. So there'll be a calculator to go with it for your talents, so you can basically swap builds, put in what you want, configure, figure out how close you are to haste cap, spell power, how much spell power you're going to get, etc., etc. So it's getting there. It's taking a long time.
That sounds actually really interesting, and it sounds like a big undertaking for you and Teamy as well. But I can't wait to see it, man. Maybe one day you can give me a little bit of a sneak peek. But yeah, I can't wait to see that when you actually push that live. I bet it's going to be amazing. I bet it's going to be glorious, man. To have something like that, even to have a calculator, I think it's going to be a game changer, really, compared to everything that's out of the market. It's out of the market. I know that warlocks have. It's like a sim where they put their gear and then it like sims their single target DPS, but I don't think there's anything for druids. I don't think there's anything for other classes except Roar.
For healers, for healers it's RAR, but for healers, RARs, it's not like we had this discussion the other day. Like, a weapon like Trauma actually has higher healing points, but it doesn't take in like how it's calculated. It doesn't take into effect Valinar, so you have to. It's kind of hard to really even have values for trinkets. You can't really accurately. It's really hard to do that with healers. DPS is DPS because you can figure out the numbers. Healing's kind of more. There's numbers you want to hit, but it's a lot more of a guessing game or trying to figure out. I want this. This amount of spell power is going to give me a better average over X amount of time. It's a little bit more complicated than DPS is.
Right, well, we're still on the subject of RAR. For those that don't know, it's like a simulation tool. It's pretty much a program where you can simulate different gear sets and, put in different armor sets and see how your DPS changes with like certain gem preset or enchants and stuff like that. Do you think RAR is going to be used in Classic Wrath?
It should be, as long as people are clicking on the correct things, with the buffs on the second page of RAR. I mean, it's how we figured out a lot of the tier lists when we were doing the tier list for Restoration Druid. Me and Teamy were going back and forth trying to figure things out, plugging in different pieces of gear, trying to see what was best. So it has its uses, yeah. I think that, but it doesn't scale. If I remember correctly, I don't think you can even Glowing Twilight Scale from Halion it's not really in there. You have to. It's manually added in later versions. So if people, I think it's in Selea's version that she has. I'm not sure if they calculate Shadowmourne DPS as well in there, if that's calculated out properly. So it's a good starter to go off of, but not something that's 100% accurate. but yeah, people should be using it to calculate things out. As far as I'm concerned, it'll at least get you close. Not 100% accurate at times, but it'll get you where you're kind of looking to go.
Yeah, because I actually wanted to touch upon it a little bit specifically with RAR. Maybe, talk about it a little bit on podcast, because it was a legendary tool back in the day. It was kind of one of the first tools, would you say? No, I don't think there was anything really close to it. I don't know, I'm just thinking like historically. I think it was one of the first programs that was made kind of, for raiders to check the stuff on their own, right?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like build your own plug and play. I don't think there was anything before that, really. There might have been, somebody might have had something drawn out on paper or an Excel sheet back then, but as far as an actual program, I think it was one of the first, if not the first, to really hit the community.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. A little bit of history on the podcast to discuss while we get into the nitty and gritty details of this week's topics. But yeah, without further ado, we're gonna get into the first topic, the first panel. All right, and as we're switching on the panel right now, as you can see, I'm gonna read it for all of you. If you may be watching and you're not gonna read yourself, so that you know what we're discussing about. So, this is from the interview that Asmongold managed to get with Ian Hazzikostas, who is the biggest main developer of World of Warcraft, working at Blizzard. And obviously, we can already see from this question that he is the boss of the boss, kind of, right? It's not Brian Birmingham. He might be, in development of Classic Wrath, but obviously he's not, he doesn't pull the last trigger. Anyway, so the question that he was asked, Ian Hazzikostas was asked, was, what do you think is going to happen now that Wrath of the Lich King Classic is coming out? Obviously, Wrath of the Lich King is going to run its course. Then what? And here comes the answer. At this point, we'd love to hear from you, from the community as a whole. What do you want to come next? We have a player base that really has made Classic their home. Many people have carried their characters from Classic into TBC and likely into Wrath beyond that. When it comes to an end, when you defeat when you kill Halion, the ultimate end boss of Wrath of the Lich King, you can't forget Ruby Sanctum. Do you want to start over? Do you want to try a different version of that? Referring to Wrath of the Lich King, different version of Wrath of the Lich King. Do you want to carry that character forward into a new adventure? I know Cataclysm for many people was like, oh, that's the beginning of an end, I'm out. But I'd ask an interesting question. What is it about Cataclysm that you didn't like? Was it Heroic Dungeons? Was it Firelands a bad raid? Was Twilight Highlands a bad zone? Was it LFR and Dungeon Finder from the start? Compressing the talent trees? What would it look like if we had Cata content with quote-unquote some changes? So basically, let me summarize this for a second. What they're talking about here is what's gonna happen next after Wrath, right? They obviously have a player base. There's this timeline that people are following, Classic Vanilla into TBC, and now into Wrath of the Lich King. What's gonna happen after Wrath of the Lich King? And Ian is asking, the community, hey, what do you guys want? If you want to see Cata, what bothered you in Cata, right? What were the changes that you didn't like that we made in Cataclysm that made you quit the game? And that's really interesting, because I actually kind of like his approach to it, because he's like, hey, was LFR a bad thing? Do you not like LFR? And yeah, I think a majority is going to answer, yeah, we didn't like LFR. And we might get Classic Cataclysm. Maybe not. We might get the different version of Wrath of the Lich King. Anyway, what's your opinion on the subject?
Oh man, this is where I quit the game, is in Cataclysm. There's He didn't mention the one thing I was hoping he would mention was when they there's a blue post somewhere, I think Ghostcrawler had it up, somewhere there's a blue post about the changes that happened. And yes, the dumbing down of the talent trees. I mean, you basically had to be a complete fucking moron in order to not spec right in Cataclysm. That was kind of dumb.
Yeah, it was very hard to spec wrong.
Didn't leave a lot of room. The problem is the dynamic, the way the raids worked was, I think, the killer. But another thing they came out with that I wish he would have addressed was when they tried to make healers the same. Okay, so in Wrath, you've got your raid healers, your resto druids, your holy priests, and you've kind of got your middle ground and shaman that can do kind of both, and then you've got disc, which is a separate thing by itself, and then you've got your tank healer and holy paladin. Well, they wanted to make all the healers the same, and there's a blue post about this somewhere where they tried to we're going to make all the healers the same. Well, it turned out horrible for Restoration Druid. If any of you guys remember playing Resto Druid back in Cata, it sucked. So they didn't work out all the kinks. I don't think they gave themselves enough time to do that. This is also the first time they released an expansion with Activision. Because, yes, Activision had bought Blizzard during Wrath, or right before Wrath. Wrath was already ready. I think it was right before Wrath. Wrath was already packaged and ready to go. So Activision didn't really have a lot of influence on Wrath of Lich King. They already had what they had set up before they were bought out. But the raids, the 10 and 25 mana making the loot the same was absolutely terrible. I think that for me is what killed the game. And I wouldn't like to see that. I don't want to see LFR. I mean, but then again, we're talking about hell, anymore. I like the originals. I don't like adding and changing stuff. Hell, we talked about it in the last podcast with, the changes with RDF. I don't like that. That's not how the game was. I mean, Cataclysm, sure, because a lot of people didn't like Cataclysm. I can see changing that, but pretty much universally, vanilla TBC Wrath was all generally well accepted and well reviewed. So why change anything? We're at the point now where there's private servers that are closer to actual Wrath of the Lich King scripting than what this Wrath Classic is going to be. And
correct.
That's a huge turnoff for me, at least. But as far as Cata goes, the Firelands is a great raid. Awesome raid. If you didn't do Firelands when it was out, I highly suggest you play that. That was a really fun raid. But yeah, was it Bastion of Twilight? What was the last? I know it was Deathwing was the last boss, but what was the name of the raid?
Dragon Soul. It was Dragon Soul.
Dragon Soul, yeah. Dragon Soul got terrible reviews on it, and because if you did the fight, jumping from his claw, fighting the claws, fighting on his back, doing all this dumb stuff, and people really did not like the end of the expansion. That's kind of where things really went downhill, is right about there. So
if you let me just interject for a second, what a lot of people forget is, right, let's talk about DBC. Tier 4 is kind of memeing DBC, but it is Tier 4. It exists. It's content, right? You have Tier 5, Tier 6, and then Sunwell as being the 4th raid, and in between you have Zulaman, right? And you also get new Firemans, which is fine. Let's look at Wrath of the Lich King. Nax being revamped is also kind of fine, because you have to look at it from a point of view, not a lot of people raided that, right? I think it was like how many guilds raided that, how many guilds actually have seen every single boss or understood every single mechanic, right? So almost no one has seen even Kel'Thuzad, right? Like they have no clue like what happened. Of course, so bringing it back for Rat kind of made sense, right? And then you have Ulduar, DOC and ICC, once again, still 4 raids. That's 4 raids on paper, right? And you're paying for your subscription. You bought your expansion. With inflation, you could say it costs twice as much back in the day. You were paying for your expansion, your sub, and you're getting 4 tiers, right? Each lasting more or less 6 months. One, maybe month longer, month shorter. And then when you look at Cataclysm, that's not the case. You have 3 tiers, right? You have your Bastion of Twilight and your tier 11, Firelands, and after that you have Dragon Soul. You have 3 tiers. Now you could say TOC is a boring raid, no trash, but there is an element of progression with the tries. If you wipe, you don't get 50 tries. There's something to chase, even if it's for 2 months, even if it's for 3 months. You do 10 minute heroic, 25 heroic, you kind of forget the other normal difficulties except 25 minutes for trinkets, right? There is some element of progression. There's something to do. There's still some kind of content, preparation for ICC, min-maxing your BIS, for ICC. So there is something to do. There is character development, and let's not forget that the TOC fireman is released. You can get more dailies, new daily hub, etc., etc. So as a package, as a whole patch, it is not the worst patch in the world. Many people say that it's bad, but like if you look at the amount of content that you get, it is not that bad, and it's incredibly alt friendly, right? Incredibly alt friendly, super easy to do. A 10-man, you get badges of triumph, emblems of triumph. Fucking too much TBC in my veins. You get emblems of triumph. You can buy tier pieces with that. You can super easily prepare maybe an alt if you want to reroll. So it's not the worst patch in the world, right? You still get 4 patches. Boom, Cataclysm and everything after that. 3 rating tiers. Mists of Pandaria, 3 rating tiers. They also cut you short. What's the first thing? I think you get you get the terrace at the end where you defeat the Shah. That's the first tier. Then you go Throne of Thunder, and then you got like Siege of Orgrimmar. You got 3 tiers. Boom. After that, Warlords of Draenor. So they're cutting you short effectively. You get 25% less each and every expansion. And that was the issue, in my opinion, as well with Cataclysm. There's not enough bosses. Like Firelands needed at least 2 more bosses to make it big, to make it impactful, right? And then maybe something else, make Dragon Soul in between raid. Maybe don't put Deathwing there, right? Maybe put a different end boss, cut the Deathwing completely, put a different end boss, and then let's get something else with Deathwing. That would have made way more sense than what they did. So just referring to that point, that is beginning of the end. Maybe it's hard to say that LFR kill it. Was LFR, the last nail in the coffin? Maybe not, but for sure getting 25% less of the product that you're paying for is the nail in the coffin. That's just, I don't know. What's your opinion on that before we go into the next slide?
I mean, yeah, it's a combination of things. It's not just one thing that started Wrath's WoW's decline. I mean, it was a multitude of issues, and I think they tried to just stuff too much change into that expansion. So to just pinpoint one thing, you can't say it's LFR, you can't say it's a dumbing down of the talents or the changes they made to raids, etc., etc. I think there might have been, you could split the blame equally. Yeah. But yeah, altogether, you're right. You're getting less, and yeah, I don't know. It just didn't feel like the whole world got made over. Remember, we forget about that. The entire world got made over, during that expansion. So all the stuff that you've been playing through and zones that you've been visiting for the last, 2 expansions and the beginning of the game is all poof gone. I mean, everything changed. So it was a lot of change in that expansion, and it just didn't play out, I don't think, the way they planned.
Yeah, they maybe should have chilled a little bit more with the changes. Maybe just a little bit. Or maybe they should have changed the world in a different patch. Maybe not from the get-go. Who knows?
I would have waited. Personally, I mean, Warlords would have been the time to do it, in my opinion. You could have changed everything.
Well, don't you think? It's just food for thought while discussing on the podcast, right? You got this whole Twilight thing, right? These Twilight guys, they're minions of Deathwing, evil, dark casters. Oh, so food for thought. What if we get kind of like a hybrid, not really change the world, but update the Twilight Highlands or something like that, and the Deathwing actually starts ripping the world apart during the Firelands patch? Why does he do it from the get-go, right? Because you don't really see the Deathwing, right? You just see he destroyed the world, and the dude's just chilling. The dude's not doing anything for the whole expansion, basically, right?
He's just flying. Remember, he would fly over zones and light them on fire if you were in that zone or whatever.
Yeah, but I think that's pre-patch.
Was it pre-patch? I can't remember now.
Well, yeah, I think it's pre-patch. I'm pretty sure that's the pre-patch. Speaking of the pre-patch, do you remember Wrath of the Lich King pre-patch?
Oh, no, that was not pre-patch. By the way, I remember it now. That was not pre-patch.
Because I think it was removed.
It was removed, but at a later part in that expansion.
Yeah.
What were you saying? The Wrath, the plague stuff. You're talking about
do you remember? Yeah.
Oh, remember my God. Getting all the major cities had grain, and you had to do. What was the name of the event? Plague grain started showing up everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And ghouls.
And you would have 10,000 million void crystals because you would get free epics, if you remember that. You would kill these undead, and you would get free gear. Essentially, you would get a bunch of free epics, and you could disenchant it into void crystal, and you can shatter that void crystal into prismatic shard, right? Large prismatic shard, right? Which essentially means that if we do get the pre-patch, Mongoose is gonna be like the freest enchant ever, which ends up being one of the most expensive ones on Frostmourne, because no one is doing TBC content. But if we do get a pre-patch, it's gonna be quite interesting, because as I said, we're gonna get so many materials for enchanting. It's gonna be quite interesting. That's just like a little side note, something that no one has ever mentioned, because naturally everyone needs to talk about their tier lists. Everyone needs to regurgitate their own factual garbage, and no one actually has played the game in the back in the day. But yeah, there's like shoulders that you can get that are epic. I remember having them on my hunter and stuff like that. A bunch of free epics. They're not like crazy epics, but they're meant to be like, here's some gear that's not gonna make you feel super bad once you step into Northrend, right? Because like
Right.
you would normally like step in like level 65 greens or something, and it's for those guys, okay, here, just kill a couple of undead, we'll give you epics. Here's like tier 4 equivalent epics. Just take it, you'll be fine. Because some of the talents, some of the classes were not doing so hot, right? With the 3.0 release, for example, like Paladins had to still.
Go ahead.
For example, Paladin seals were 2 minutes. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, and you could use wings with popping bubble.
Yeah.
Before they fixed all that.
Exactly, I remember
that was part of the pre-patch.
Mm-hmm. In the pre-patch, the day one of the pre-patch, because I would be reading all of these changes. I was religiously reading these changes and reading about the beta. What happened in the beta, who got in the beta, and like there was like a couple of videos and stuff like that. They were super underground. So when the patch hit, I already had like a build for my Red Paladin, and I just hit the BGs, and I remember going like 35-3 or something like that. Sadly, I don't have screenshots because we used Xfire back in the day, but it was amazing, man. That was like one of the best experiences I ever had, was the pre-patch, essentially, man. Like really, that was so fun. That was one of the most interesting periods of the game, for sure, for me personally, that I hold dearly. But yeah, anything you would like to add about the pre-patch potentially before we go on to the next slide?
No, I think let's just no.
All right.
I mean, I could sit here and discuss it all day long, but yeah, go.
And the next slide, let's zoom it in. Here is what he says. I'm not defending that. This is from Brian Birmingham, a tweet. He says, I'm not defending that. I'm saying that cross-run play and teleportation and auto-grouping are outside of the classic ethos. Then he says, improving the grouping tool is a priority for us, but we don't want to go all the way to the automatic group finder from patch 335. Interjection, it's not patch 335, it's patch 3.3. There are vast differences between 335 and 3.3. No, it's not semantics, it's actually factually different. And then he drops a hope that helps clarify, and drops a heart. Heart was not needed, keep it professional, bud. But yeah, to summarize it, they do not want to give you do not want to give automatic grouping to the player base. Before I go on a rant, I'll let you go first.
What a shit show. No, go ahead, because I want to hear what you have to say actually on this first before I go on my rant about it.
Well, I'll just show this. And then we can dig in. Here is a person. Here is another slide. He says on Twitter, so this is where all of the communication happens. He says, "Hi Brian, please just look at the screenshot, and can you truly, with a straight face, tell me this is a better experience than LFD? Yes, those are all boosters. Yes, with they're all within only 2 minutes. This is a terrible user experience, right? And here is the screenshot that the said person is providing. If you can see right now on the screen, this is nothing but mages. Like, this is nothing but mages. This is past 2 minutes. It's unknown on which server this guy is, but I can tell you on Farolina, it's even worse than this. It's just people like mages and paladins.
That's all it is. Yep.
This guy is want to sell SP boost, selling Mara boost, SP boost, selling Zul'Farrak boost, selling strats, selling Shadow Labs, selling Mara, selling SP, selling Shadow Labs, and they're just nothing but spamming. Right? They're actually spamming the channel, the LFG channel. This is being constantly pumped like a gas station, and he provides him the screenshot. And here is what our beautiful Brian Birmingham has, what he has to say. Well, if I recall correctly, RuneScape proposes a change and then polls it to the active players. And if 75% approve, it goes in. I'd rather like that idea, but what we would poll for the Lich King, add 10 levels, add new dungeons, add LFD, cut LFD, which one of the last two needs 75% to pass? I'm not a native English speaker, but I'm pretty sure that the last sentence is so confusing. Which of the last two needs 75% to pass? So I'm going to decode his poorly worded English tweet into something that makes sense. I think what he's referring to is add LFD, cut LFD would be like a 50-50. So what we can see here is, I think what he's trying to communicate with us is that he thinks, or the Blizzard thinks, that the community is divided 50-50 on the LFD matter. And he uses the previous example of the 75% threshold. Now let me ask you this. First of all, where are we pulling the 75% threshold from? Why does it need to be 3/4? Why can't it be 70%? Why can't it be 2/3? If 2/3, 66%. He says add new dungeons. Why would you add 10 levels? I mean, look at that. Add 10 levels? Like, this is nonsense. What kind of question is this? Add 10 levels. Why would you add 10 levels in Wrath of the Lich King? Why would you add 10 levels anywhere? That's like, hey, let me put 3 more lights on my car. Why? Why? It makes no sense. It's like, hey, let me put another leg on the table. Hey, let me put another, I don't know, cushion on the couch. Sure, maybe if your ass hurts. It makes no sense. Add new dungeons? Yes, add new dungeons. Why not? Add a dungeon in Ulduar. Why don't you add a dungeon in Ulduar that maybe has, I don't know, let's say item level 213 or something like that you can go in, a little bit of catch up, maybe, tell a story about Titans, a story that, we never heard about. Hey, maybe tell us a story about Freya or something like that, Tell us the story about the 4 Titans that we're going to meet later on in the Ulduar. Why wouldn't you add a new dungeon? I'm pretty sure everyone would vote, right? But you can see in this tweet that the focus is on LFD, right? So there is a stupid example, that's an actual example, and then there's 2 more, which are essentially one question, LFD. There's no need add and cut. There's no add and cut. You don't have LFD. You cannot backport the system. You have 2 interns that are spilling coffee on the servers that don't know what they're doing. So let's not pretend like you can add, and let's not pretend like you can cut something which is already not in the game. But yeah, what'd you make of this, man? I don't know. This is so confusing.
This whole thing. First of all, let's just talk about RD. I think let's just talk about RDF.
Yeah,
because adding 10 levels is stupid. That's the dumbest thing ever. Why make leveling more grindy? How is that more immersive? Why would anybody want that? Dumb. First and foremost. Second of all, adding a new dungeon, I don't see how that's gonna do anything whatsoever. Dumb. Adding RDF, or looking for dungeon, LFD, whatever you want to call it. Do people not understand how easy the dungeons in Wrath are? And imagine finding a group, you're in Dalaran, you find a group, right? And then you gotta get on your mount and fly all the way across Northern to go to these different dungeons. How dumb is that? Not to mention, you're probably going to have to pick up a quest from somewhere in order to get your daily, since they're going to remove that. That was a
Yeah.
tool in the RDF that
From
you
Dalaran,
automatically
from
got.
Dalaran, when you enter the Violet Hold, well, the
Yeah,
Violets,
same place you would pick up your raid weekly from.
yeah, exactly, from that place.
So you're going to have to go in there every day, pick up something,
Yep.
and then go do that dungeon, find 5 players. Why? These dungeons are not immersive. By the time tier 7's over, you're going to be so tired of doing the dumb dungeons because they're so bleeding easy that at some point later on you don't even need to take tanks. You can just do 4 DPS. Hell, you can do 5 DPS and just have like a healer off heal. It's so easy. So how does going with a group, finding a group, flying 20 minutes, make it more immersive just to speed run and be done in less than 5 minutes in these dungeons? Where's the immersion in that? Where's the point in that? Why would I want to go all the way over here, pick up then you got to fly back, turn the stupid quest in, or Hearth, and you just burnt your half hour for Hearth, or if you got your seal a dollar on or whatever you got, you're burning it just to go back there, just turning a dumb quest. Stupid. Absolutely stupid. Anyone who advocates or says that random dungeon finder killed WoW is an absolute retard. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's beyond it. For me, it was one of those moments where I just face palm and look at like, why would you guys remove that? That is stupid. Look, and exactly what that screenshot showed, what you showed there with mages spamming. I've seen it on TPC server on the servers I play on, and I'm on Faralina. And I got a character on another smaller realm, on Windseeker, I believe. They're both flooded with the same crap. Runs for the mages paying for runs and paladin. That's all it is. Well, how is that? Clearly, it's not immersive. What is Blizzard thinking? Are they that dumb that they haven't even taken notice of this stuff at all? Like, you can't tell me that they did not know. Oh, hey, let's cut RDF because there was no RDF previously, and that worked out great. No, show us where that worked out so great. Show us. Clearly, you're not paying attention to your own fucking classic community because that's not been working out at all. So to me, the whole thing is stupid. It's dumb. It's typical Blizzard thinking with their ass instead of their head. So. Whatever.
Well, he mentioned something. He said that the LFD is not part of the classic ethos, right? So he's comparing Wrath of the Lich King Classic to kind of like Vanilla Classic.
This brings us back to what we talked about earlier, and what I was saying. Like, I like the game. I like Wrath the way it was. Keep it the way it was. Keep it as close to retail as possible. Why are you making all these dumbass changes? Oh, it's not part of the ethos. What ethos? Because your first 2 expansions didn't have, or your first expansion and the first part of your game didn't have it, because we were still learning what was good and what was bad in games. We were still, MMOs were still trying to figure it out, and WoW was the big mover of a lot of the things that you see today in MMOs. And still to this day, they try to model a lot off of what World of Warcraft did. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, the item level, for example, all of that.
It didn't kill the game. I don't know. It's not part of the ethos. What the hell does that even mean? It was part of the game when it was 12 years ago. Why wouldn't you make a part of it a part of it now? That makes zero sense to me whatsoever.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Let me just interject for a second. This is what I believe. I believe this is the biggest bullshit and the biggest lie ever said ever. They're hiding behind this quote-unquote statement. They're saying it's classic ethos. It didn't originally launch with this. It didn't this. It didn't that. Bullshit. It's not ready. They're incompetent. It's simple as that. They're fucking lying to everyone's fucking face directly. It is what it is. Just trust me on that one. Trust me. And it's hard to conspiracy theory. No, it's not a conspiracy theory. These developers have no clue what they're talking about. If you put a gun to their head and ask them to explain 3 mechanics on Yogg-Saron on Zero Lights, sadly you would have to fire that gun about 15 times because they would get it wrong every single time. These people have no clue about their product. They have no clue about their game. They're hiding behind this fact. They're saying classic ethos. They're using basically borrowed words. trying to sound fancy on a stupid platform, trying to somehow save their face when that is not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And anyone who actually plays the game and or has played the game before knows that this makes no sense. You said it yourself, Funky. Like, the 5-mans are easy. The normals are a joke. It's not even a challenge. It really isn't. Like, you don't even need a healer. You can do it with a boomkin. I think today or yesterday I tanked Halls of Lightning Heroic. We 4-manned it with a boomkin as a healer. Mind you, completely dog shit geared boomkin. I'm not talking about I'm talking greens, I'm talking blues, I'm talking this guy has barely enough mana to fucking shapeshift into boomkin form, right? These dungeons are not hard, and if there is no difficulty, right? If there's no difficulty from the dungeon for the players, that means that forming a group is completely pointless. It really is. The difficulty behind forming a group should matter if the dungeon is difficult. Let's say you have a 5-man heroic and you need to do all of the tactics properly, the strategy, maybe optimize your group comp, maybe think about how we're going to approach, the pathing from boss 1 to boss 2 to boss 3, etc., etc. Maybe you will care, you would in that case care that you do it with your guildies and stuff like that if they were super challenging, super rewarding, but they're not, and they won't be. We know that. We know that is a fact. That is a mathematical fact. We're getting the last patch. It's going to be a rufflecopter, just AoE / cleave through the dungeons. Just let's get it over with. And if you die, people are gonna rage because how the frick did you even die in the first place? It's almost impossible to die. That's the issue, is that these people understand. I think you hit the nail with the biggest sledgehammer possible when you said, yeah, this stuff is easy. It makes no sense, right? This stuff is so easy, it makes no sense for it. It makes no sense for it to be like gate kept through not having the LFD. And once again, just to repeat myself, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. Like, I had my time off from the last episode, and if anything, I'm but more convinced that they're actually lying. They're openly lying. They're lying pieces of shit. They're incompetent bunch of fucking nobodies that somehow got into this position, that somehow are telling promises and telling beautiful stories to their superiors how they're gonna make money, and putting bullshit fucking on, I don't know what kind of jobs and positions on their resume. They landed a job at Blizzard, and now, like, what, I don't know, for 100k a year, they're lying to people on Twitter and serving subscribers more fucking garbage. I mean, I think this doesn't get to, like, not to say that I'm taking the black pill or that I'm pessimistic, but this is the world that we live in, and someone needs to call these people out. I'm sorry. Brian Birmingham is so full of shit that even if he spent 2 weeks on the toilet, he would still be full of it. And, that guy needs to work overtime. Next 2 years, he needs to lock himself on the bathroom because that's how much diarrhea is being spilled on his Twitter page. That's just a matter of a fact, really. It just doesn't get more primitive. Like, I mean, what can you even say? The content creators are all sharing 2 brain cells, and they have they have IQ of room temperature. So during the winter, it is extremely, extremely dangerous to go on YouTube and/or Twitch, and then you go on Twitter and you read Blizzard's bullshit, and you all of a sudden are questioning, why are you even subscribed to this game? What's the point? Just go play Hello Kitty Online Explorer or something like that. You will get more competent development from that game. But anyway, not to rant too much. Funky, the mic is yours.
No, this whole thing, when I'm looking at what they're planning for Wrath and what they've removed, what they're planning to remove, I mean, again, like I said, this isn't the original World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King. This is something else. And if people want custom content, private servers already facilitate to that. I mean, that's what this essentially is to me. It's custom content on a more stable server with probably a bigger player base. I mean, other than that, what's the fucking point? I mean, It blows my mind. Like you said, all these content creators, they're so stupid. Every single one of them's dumber than shit. And why people flock this, I don't. We kind of talked about this in the last episode too. Is even previous episodes, why people flock to this is beyond me. And then they get all these people riled up to, on their side, or push for this, push for that, because this person said so. When that person doesn't even have a fucking clue what the hell they're talking about to begin with. Nobody fact checks anybody. They just feeling. Oh, I feel this way. Oh, my butt. It hurts. I need to talk about it with somebody. Fucking dumb.
True. You know what's also stupid? Very, very dumb. Or at least very low IQ. The Discords. The Discords constantly saying the same thing. Constantly repeating themselves. There's like... I don't know. Before I start ranting about Paladin Discord, maybe you can share your experiences about Druid Discord, because I haven't really heard much about that, to be honest.
Okay, so the Druid Discord. Every single Discord, well, just the Druid one, I'll just focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
The Druid Discord, at least in the restoration portion, a lot of the balance stuff I see is absurd too, but they all talk about engineering being a must for restoration druid. I'm like, you guys said that what DPS is a huge thing. DPS is a huge thing, and we've tested this. Me and Teamy went and tested it, I believe, not that long ago. And Shaman's probably the best DPS option as a healer, because they can do passive DPS. They can drop a totem and do passive DPS. They don't even need to, spend GCDs on actual DPS. And if you want to look at, dropping bombs, that come with engineering, it's dumb. So what if it doesn't break you out of form? If you're talking about doing actual DPS, you look at a fight like Lich King, and you're talking about speed runs, because that's the, that's the talk of the town. Everyone speed run this, speed run that. Let's assume you get a bad RNG. Let's say your best DPS, your warrior, gets picked up on Valks, okay? And I don't know whoever the other two DPS are, a hunter and a paladin, whatever. Do you really think that you're going to be able to make up the DPS difference that warrior would have brought you?
Yeah, no shot.
Even with all 5 healers DPSing, it's not going to make any fucking difference. RNG plays a factor in here, and people just refuse to understand that, or I guess factor that into stuff. And it's like, you expect me to bust out of form as a druid. Not to mention, I got to spend a global to get back into form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you want me to do what? DPS? Oh, there's downtime. What downtime?
Just to interject, if you don't have a Paladin Devotion aura, because you might not, because like they might be setting on a different aura to aura mastery, but if you don't have Paladin and Devotion aura, you're losing the extra healing as well. But sorry, continue.
No, what was I saying?
You lose a GCD on the form.
Well, you lose GCD, but if all 5 healers were to DPS, they would not make up the difference in that warrior being picked up. Versus, let's say, instead of that warrior getting picked up, you get a warlock picked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
What can warlocks do? They can teleport when they get dropped. You don't even need to spend DPS on them, right? That's gonna change. That's gonna be much more of a significant change in your speed run. Is RNG? RNG is gonna play a much bigger factor than you spending, all these globals and this. I know what I was gonna say. This supposed downtime. They think that this is an actual thing. Look, and I sent you a message about it last week. TBC is not the same thing as Wrath. This is a huge misconception. There is downtime in TBC. There's downtime in vanilla where healers can DPS. That does not exist in Wrath of the Lich King, especially after tier 7. In tier 7, sure, you might be able to get some free globals in here or there, but chances are, if your healer is actually having a chance to DPS, then bench that druid or bench that healer, whatever, and bring a real DPS. If you don't need the healing, bench him. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh, we're going to make him a hybrid. Why? Why wouldn't you just make... If you don't need him, bench him and bring a full DPS in. That's the dumbest thing ever. This whole thing on the Discords, It's talking about they're min-maxing DPS on healers instead of min-maxing or optimizing healing, which is bizarre to me. You're gonna optimize DPS as a healer, but you're not gonna optimize healing as a healer. Like, what goofy fucking shit does that make any sense whatsoever? None. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And if people really believe that, they think everyone's gonna go engineering. They think everything should be engineering no matter what. And there's no reason or rhyme behind it, especially with a druid. We have cheetah on some fights. Granted, those are very few and far between. We have kitty dash, though, which will be off cooldown the same amount of, or actually less time than rocket boots would. So hyperspeed accelerators. People are talking about this now. The big thing I'm seeing on the discords are people talking about, well, Funky, what about, I had this discussion in another discord the other day. Trauma is better than Valinor 66% of the time. What are you talking about? Because Valinor has a cooldown and Trauma doesn't, but Trauma still has a 1% chance to proc. Well, it's got higher spell power. Okay, but when Valinor is active, it's exponentially better than Trauma. Like, it's not even close. It's far and beyond huge difference. This is why you keep it on, so it comes off cooldown, because if you weapon swap, you gotta wait 30 seconds for Valinor to come off cooldown. And it's the same thing I'm seeing now. Everyone's worried about spike damage. What about spike damage? What spike damage are you expecting to take? Well, Blood Bolt Whirl, for example, on BQL. Really? You're gonna build your entire build and all of your gear around 2 to 4 seconds of the fight rather than for the 4 to 5 minutes for the fight? That makes absolutely zero sense. What are you guys talking about spike damage? First of all, if you're dying on BQL, you're a fucking retard and you need to delete the game and go home and wash your ass. If you're worried about 2 to 4 seconds of the fight, you're building your character wrong. You're building your sets wrong. You're using the wrong stats. You're thinking of it the wrong way. You build for the entire fight and you average it over the entire fight. Because so what if you're really, really good within 2 to 4 seconds of the fight? That means you're underpowered for the rest of the fight. What does that matter? It doesn't matter if you're, spike damage. That's why you have fellow healers, you have other classes, you have chain heal, holy light, etc., etc. You have things, you work together as a healing group. The whole thing is the dumbest concept I've ever heard. Doesn't matter how you explain this to people, doesn't matter if what you show them, doesn't matter what you could tell them. They don't want to hear it, or they always come up with some other argument. Like, it's like math doesn't make any sense. None of this stuff makes sense. I mean, it's dumb. I don't know what you've seen. What have you seen on these discords?
I've seen probably the biggest amount of mental instability ever possibly witnessed by human race. We've entered a period of time, especially after Corona, where a lot of people came back online. During lockdowns, a lot of people maybe quit their hobbies or change their behavior or their patterns and day-to-day life, and are participating in online activities much more. And for some of them it happens to be World of Warcraft, for some of them it's spilling factual garbage in discords, and one of them happens to be Paladin Discord. I'm sorry if you're offended by me saying this, but Paladin Discord currently, coming from vanilla into TBC, is possibly the most primitive thing that I've seen, and the biggest thing. And one of them is when I hear stuff like "we learned nothing" or TBC private servers were completely wrong. This is going to be a big point of our today's podcast that we kind of are saving for the middle of the show, but let me just touch upon that's the most primitive outtake I've ever heard. There's like 4 or 5 figures regurgitating the same thing, saying, the TBC got this wrong, Fury Warriors are pumping and stuff like that. I mean, where are Fury Warriors pumping? Once again, on a toilet in a gas station? What are they doing? What are they pumping? They're pumping on Illidan, where you get worms that have spawns, whatever, adds that have 2k HP, and you bring it into melee and they cleave in Whirlwind, because you can ignore the mechanic. That's where they're pumping. If the boss fight is supposed to be tuned properly, if the boss fight was tuned as to be intended, you wouldn't see this stuff happening. You wouldn't see you wouldn't see even 3-4 Fury Warriors, and even then people don't bring them that much. So there's yes, Fury Warrior can do damage, but just how much do you need to invest into Fury Warrior is just insane. And someone keeps talking about speedruns. The only reason why you can speedrun is because the bosses themselves are not challenging, right? It's all there is to it, necessarily. It is not challenging enough. It is not tuned properly. Let me ask you this. We got Sunwell PTR, all of these guilds are on PTR, and they're wiping like never before. Oh, we need to figure it out. What do you need to figure out? How many tanks do you need? How many healers do you need? 3-4 mechanics. You need to figure out what. So here is, I ask you a question. What kind of competence even is there in the player base if they're wiping day after day on Sunwell? They need to figure out Muru. Are you fucking kidding me? Is this a joke? You need to figure out Muru. After how many years? After how many cycles of private servers? After how many thousands of hours of footage? You need to figure out Muru. Are you kidding me? How incompetent are you? How incompetent are you that you can't clear fucking Sunwell day one? Day one, even if it takes you 5 hours. You need 2 days to clear Sunwell? It just shows just how one-dimensional some of these players are and some of these guilds are. Now you might be saying, oh, Fark, what did you do? I don't need to raid Sunwell. I don't care about this. There's going to be a hater somewhere in the comments, or dropping a dislike, or regurgitating probably one of the other fucking retards are fucking hard flamed. It is as simple as that. It is really simple as that. Here's food for thought. I can't wait for TOC PTR. I'm not even gonna say Old War. Old War is gonna be all over. I don't care about Tier 7. Tier 7 is less relevant than Nipple on the Man. Old War is gonna be wonky because you're gonna have to test shit anyway. It could be weird, and it's a long raid. But let's say TOC. How many people are gonna do 50 tries on TOC? Top guilds. I'm talking about top 5 guilds in the world. I can't wait. Like if they're wiping in someone, it's going to be disgraceful in Wrath of the Lich King. Nothing's going to change unless we get influx of better players. Nothing is going to change. Literally nothing. Same with ICC. It is going to be a wipe fest. It's going to be wipe fest. If you're wiping right now in Sunwell, you best believe the moment you step into ICC Heroic, you're going to be wiping like you had Chipotle for breakfast and dinner in the same day. Trust. And this is where I have to say is like, it's fine that, you know, we're all better and we all have our add-ons and as a community, you know, we're all raiding and we have the discords and GDKPs and raid signups and loot councils and spreadsheets and guides. But if you look at the reality, people can't play for shit. People cannot play for shit. This is the worst iteration of skill we had in a long while. There have been more skilled players during Cataclysm, during Mists of Pandaria than we have right now on Frostmourne 3. I've been queuing with some of these people. I have been doing dungeons with some of these people coming from TBC, and they have no fucking clue what they're doing. They don't understand in the slightest thing. Let me just show you something. Let me just quickly show you a quick sneak peek, just quick slide. Let me show you the details breakdown of one of the dungeons that I was doing in. You can all enjoy and watch what happens. I'm not flaming anyone. Listen, if you play the game to enjoy, play the game to enjoy. But when we're discussing real talk, this is the real talk. Here is what happened in one of the dungeons the other day. I pull, I think, 8 mobs together. And this is what I get. First of all, you know, I have to listen to literal nobodies speak how protection warriors are complete garbage. Tank, never bring them. They're suboptimal. They're not viable. You will never do anything with protection warrior. Factually incorrect. They're amazing for dungeons. Reason why you don't bring them for ICC prog is because they don't really do well early ICC. In tier 7, they're amazing.
The ICC debuff. Not to cut you off, but the ICC debuff. Yeah, until then they were great. Everyone used them until ICC.
Yeah, which was exactly what no one is talking about. Like you can have 1k block value. You're pogging. You're having field day. You're amazing in tier 7 protection warrior. well, I accept the carpal tunnel, but you're having a field day. You're being amazed. Once again, these players, the names, I didn't bother censoring them because they're probably just, burner names. I'm not flaming these people. I'm flaming the community as a general, which is, debatably worse. But it's just the delusions that some of these content creators have, the garbage that they upload, the shit that they regurgitate is insane. And then you queue into it, and it's like, yo, you're being hardcore out DPS by a protection warrior. There's a rogue more AFK than a Muppet in a Goldshire, and there is a warlock probably learning how to count to 10 after 50 years of high school or something. I don't know what in flying frick is going on in this dungeon, but there you go. I out DPS'd pretty much everyone. Not pretty much. I did out DPS everyone, but I wanted to say the rogue and warlock combined have been out DPS'd heavily. In this screenshot, this is in Achenkachet, the Old Kingdom, and the one weird dungeon next to Azul Nerub, and that's the second pool of the dungeon, or sorry, no, that's the third pool of the dungeon where this happened. Naturally, the group disbanded because I'm not going to do a dungeon like that, right? That's just not the reality of the matter. So yes, this is just like me sharing my point of view. I think it's just incredibly pathetic and primitive that you have certain guilds and certain people that are like held on a certain level and they're just wiping on Sunwell. Like, I'm sorry, like if you're actually a serious hardcore gamer, PTR launches, you prepare your team, boom, that needs to be cleared. There's no discussion, there's no if, there's no buts, there's nothing. That needs to be cleared in one sitting, in one go. If you're not capable of clearing it after this many years, then your opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, there's no relearning. You had all of the time, like, what are you doing? If you're actually a serious streamer in a serious guild and you're making a decent financial, you're professional basically, because this is the definition of being professional, right? Don't give me the bullshit I'm an entertaining streamer. Fuck off. You're entertaining as my fucking left butt cheek after sitting on it for half a day, okay? No one's fucking entertaining because not all of them have personalities of a used monster can that's been in the sun heat for 2 days, okay? So none of these guys are actually prepared. And I actually want to see what's going to happen in Wrath of the Lich King. I hope we're going to get some private server guilds finally smashing the living fuck out of these Scroop noobs, because I haven't been disappointed with the community in the global for a long while. Like, once again, I can't put an emphasis enough. Of course, Flame is going to be going my way. Hey, Fark, this and that. Once again, it doesn't matter. Results only matter. It doesn't matter how you get there. Results only matter. And if your results are shit, you're shit. It's as simple as that. It is very, very, very simple. It is super simple. If you're viping in Sunwell, you're on PTR as a serious guild, as a hardcore guild. It's a guild that has 3 or 4 or 5 or 7 streamers or something like that, and you're all networking, you're just spewing your own bullshit. How do you expect anyone with 2 brain cells to respect you? What respect do you deserve? You just wiped on stream for 2 days. You showed how incapable you are of doing anything shitworth, and you deserve any kind of respect, and you think your opinion matters because you upload garbage on fucking YouTube? Fuck that shit, dude. And this is another thing. Maybe, why they're lying to you part 2. It's just a circle of bullshit constantly rotating just to fucking lie to the viewer, just to lie to everyone who's watching. Let's all pretend. If we pretend, everyone wiped on Sunwell, guys, it's okay. No, you're all incompetent. It's that simple. You had 20 years to prepare for this fucking raid and you can't fucking kill it on the PTR from one go. Shut the fuck up, bro. It's really as easy as it is. Really, like, it's that simple, man. Like, if you have an institution, under quotations, or organization, an institution, whatever, and all of them are, united under the same goal of performance in this video game, which is, for some of them, by the looks of it, they want to make it their job, and you're telling me that you can't perform at your job, well, you should be getting fired. But sadly, you don't get to be fired from Twitch or YouTube, right? You just make more YouTube videos about Wrath of the Lich King and upload bullshit DPS tier lists, right? Doesn't matter that you wiped in Sunwell. You'll get it on launch, right? Doesn't matter that if you don't get it on launch, it's fine. There's always tier 7. Doesn't matter if you don't get Realm First on tier 7, there's always Ulduar. And it doesn't matter if you don't get Yogg-Saron, there's always TSC, right? There's always something, right? There's gonna be Cataclysm, and there's always something, and this is the never-ending cycle of, let's accept incompetence. This is like a long rant for me anyway. Sorry, Funky. You've
like you're saying though, it's you're gonna look at all these guys who are talking. I want to see any of these guys who are talking actually in a world first. Let's show me where they're actually going to be doing anything. And a lot of these people that I talk to, and I bring that up to them, I'm like, why are all the world first guilds private server players? Why is that? Well, that doesn't matter. Speedrunnings matter. Who cares? Well, yeah, it does. It does matter. It means you're gonna what? They've already got the titles. Now you're gonna sit back and what? Get more gear, and what? Do speed runs? Zippy doo. To me, that's dumb. And yeah, I do think there are going to be some. At least there's one guild I know of that they're looking into, and they're a very serious guild, and they're probably one of the best guilds out there. Looking to play Wrath Classic, and I hope to God that they crush whoever's out there right now. I mean, we know Progress has a few private server. They have Anfall, for example. They have him from private servers. So, not that that's saying anything. Any guild that's gonna take Anfall is retarded in my book. But they're fucking retarded. Obviously, they haven't done their research on him. They haven't looked into any of the things he says or does. Double disc on Lich King, and haste has diminished.
Here's the thing. Sorry for interrupting you. Here's a piece of information. They did research on him, and they said we've seen what you have, and it's amazing. Something that it's a quote. What impresses them, yeah, that's a quote that I heard of.
Shit in the toilet, and that'll really impress them. Because if that impresses them, Jesus fucking Christ. That guy he's never written in a guide. He doesn't even know math. He doesn't understand how haste works, which is beyond. That's so fucking stupid. And that's what it is. That's what we're dealing with now. We're dealing with a bunch of wild retards.
Here's my issue with the quasi raid leaders and wannabes. I just compare them to myself. I don't consider myself to be the best. I really don't. I don't consider myself to be the best. I know a couple of things, here and there. I really don't think I'm the best, and I always strive to be the worst. And whatever I do, I want to be the worst. This is what I always push my raiders and those that play with me and tell them, you should make me look bad. If you think I'm a good player, then make me look bad. Play so good that I look like I'm complete garbage, right? And I compare these guys to myself, like some of the quote-unquote Frostmourne, they never touched a Warmane before in their life. Somehow now they're all of a sudden on Frostmourne. All of these other Muppets that are coming out of the woodwork, I compare their raid leading to mine. And then I here's the thing. I hear a guy raid lead today, because I watch them here and there, right? I take the time out of my day, I see what they're doing, and then I hear a guy raid leading, and he's like, oh yeah, just drop a Mana Tide. And I'm like, okay. Why? Why at this point would you drop a Mana Tide? It makes sense, you're not combining it, you're not using the raid cooldowns properly. That's just one thing. Once again, if I'm not gonna list all of the things, because if they might be watching this, if they want coaching and raid leading, they can pay me $50 an hour, no problem, I'll coach them, but not on this podcast, and not for free, certainly. Not for Muppets. They're doing these calls during the raid, the shot calling that makes no sense whatsoever. No sense. It's just complete Muppets regurgitating bullshit. It's like a couple of retards learned that divine sacrifice exists, and that's all they do. Desec this, desec that. It's like they don't even know how to use the desec. And all of these raid leaders, well, not all of these, but most of the raid leaders that are on the Twitch, that are promoting themselves like to be fucking Apollons or some kind of titans or gods, they're fucking complete utter retards that have no clue about raid leading. Their shot calling is garbage. I cannot even wipe my ass with that fucking shit. That's how bad it is, right? And then somehow they make it into progress, and then they, poster prance around the fucking... They prance around the fucking Twitch and make their posters, and I'm in progress in this shit. Simmer the fuck down, buddy. You're a fucking nobody. It's a fucking joke, dude. Like, I swear to God, the people that are actually good at the game, like, I'll give him a shout out, Elqui. I actually watched some of this shit. It's one of really, really good raid leaders, and he plays on Iceground, and he probably raid led thousands of fucking raids, and you can see he's constantly clearing stuff. He did zero buff recently. I think Celaya was in there, and I know you know Elqui.
He was my GM in that guild.
He's like one of the people that I would say, yo, that's an example of a really good raid leader. He knows exactly what he's talking about. He's super chill, knows the shot calls, knows who knows what. So shout out to him. He's one of the, probably I would say one of the raid leaders. If you want to watch, from a point of view who knows how to raid lead, that's Elqui for sure. None of the other fucking Muppets who are quote unquote racing for the world first, especially Tsitsiban and fucking garbage that he's fucking spewing and whatever the fuck their inbred guild is with fucking Gnev playing on a fucking mage. It's a fucking joke, dude. It's such a Muppet show, dude. Like, it's a Sesame Street 3.0, World of Warcraft edition, Wrath of the Lich King to be specific. It is absolutely insane. It is like, it's like you took meth and DMT and combined it, and somehow this came to be. It is complete insanity through and through. Complete insanity, dude. I don't know. If I mentioned a lot of names. I don't know if you want to touch upon them as well. Funky.
I mean, if you're asking me about Gnev, the guy thinks, we've been over this ground before. I mean, this coming from the same guy who, I mean, here's the thing. When you misspeak about something, I'm okay about it when you go back and be like, that's not what I meant. I meant it as this. Or, hey, you're right. You correct yourself or you explain yourself. And we're to the point where we're on the same page now. And yes, the math lines up with what you're saying. I'm all for that. I got no problem with that. But when you're sitting there advocating that JOL is way overpowered for Holy Paladins and that Holy Paladins have to use JOL, and when you can sit there and I have the video, it's, I'm not here to promote my video, but
no, do it. Go ahead. Works, heck, I'll even put it in the chat. Give it a link on Twitch. In the
JOL works a certain way with Holy Paladin. Now, here's the thing with why it's bad on a Holy Paladin, and people don't realize this, is that second, let me.
It's fine. Take your moment.
The one reason why actually two reasons why it's gonna suck. The video covers the reasons why it sucks to use it for basically to inflate stats. The second thing is where it sucks as, see, classic logs are gonna break that down. The JOL, they're gonna break it down properly. So it's actually going to be attributed to the person who's causing the proc, which is the way it should be attributed on private server, but it's currently not due to how the logs work and how it's scripted, blah, blah, blah. So go ahead, use JOL as a Holy Paladin, because you're not going to get any healing from it when you upload your logs or look at your logs on Classic. That crap is out the window because they can break things down a lot better on Classic logs than they ever could on the old logs.
That's so how. By the way, that's how it works currently. By the way, on the logs, and I'm pretty sure that's how it also works on the details. When you check the details, I'm pretty sure, because when you judge the JOL, any and all healing that happens based on Judgment of Light or light being judged, because it's TBC, right? Is attributed to the person, and it's complete, it's garbage. Like, man, the procs are a fucking joke, but like the Wrath of the Lich King version of it is obviously amazing, right? And I think, like, I also had a guy who, speaking of which, what Funky is talking about, just to bolster his point, I had the guy message me, good healer, don't get me wrong, good healer, I'm not flaming him, but he messaged me with something which made me rush to the toilet because of a cute attack of diarrhea. He's like, check my healing in Obsidian Sanctum Fark. Oh, I'm first. And I checked the healing, JOL 40%. And I'm like, listen, you happen to be the only paladin. You judge JOL. Fine, that's fine. But you judging JOL doesn't make you a good healer. If anything, it's like, okay, you judged it, you heal with it, it's fine. There are times in 10-man raids where you should be judging JOL, because that's like the whole, especially if people are spread and not properly stacked, it is gonna be the, best fucking heal per global, right? as long as you're provided your tank is on full HP and you don't need to like bubble sack him or some shit. But it's really hard to explain it to people, especially for some of those who don't have a lot of experience, just how much bullshit is being uploaded on YouTube. When someone tells you, oh, Judgment of Light, Holy Paladin, anyone can judge light. Anyone, any paladin can judge light. In fact,
well, here's the thing. It's actually in their rotation. The other paladins, it's in their rotation to judge.
Correct.
It's not it's there in their rotation to judge every 20 seconds. It's or less. It's not in the Holy's rotation to do it more than 1 minute.
Yes, absolutely. It is not. And that's the thing. You do have a buff that you need to keep up as a Holy. You need to keep up your haste buff, right? And yeah, sure, you could. There's the debate, oh, what if it misses? You want to judge? Sure, judge twice per minute. Keep it up, who cares if you judge twice per minute? But the issue is if you're judging on CD or some shit like that, right? If you're actually judging on CD, or the worst case scenario I had is, this is where I lost all of my brain cells. This is where I became worse than a dictator once. I had 2 paladins that would play chicken shit game with each other, and they would snipe each other's judgments. They wouldn't heal the tank. They would legit sit there and wait who's gonna judge first, so the other guy can judge second. And they would do this all the freaking time, and they would try to, one up each other. Fuck you, I'm gonna judge. And eventually I lost my shit, and I'm like, listen, none of you are gonna get loot. If I see one more Judgment of Light, both of you are not gonna get loot. Kid you not. The next boss would pull. I mean, the tanks are healthier than freaking, rejuvenized patient, dude. The tanks are not dying, but you don't even need to use a personal on a tank anymore. External? What external, please? What shield wall? What IBF? You don't need to use IBF. You've got 2 Holy Paladins healing finally, right?
If you want a prime example, the picture I just sent you, pull that up, and it'll show the prime example of using JOL at the wrong time.
Yeah, we'll put it up. We'll put it up just a second. We need a broadcasting team to switch it over. We're contacting the broadcasting team, and we got it. It is up.
Okay, so this is the reason why it's a bad time to judge. So as you can see, Shatterhand judges, right? And then 1 second later, because judgment puts you in a 1.5 second global cooldown when you judge. Haste does not affect it whatsoever. So he's just put himself in a 1.5 second global cooldown. Guess what's happening? Instead of pre-casting for the Soul Reaper that's about ready to hit his tank and kill his tank, he went ahead and judged. And in his guide, Shatter has a guide. I'm sure it's going to be floated around and used. He's advocating for a total haste build instead of using any kind of hit rating, etc., which is actually bad. But that's a whole other story. But in this, he says, you should know when to judge. You got to know when to judge. You got to know when to judge. Well, we pulled up a world of log of his. Like, this was that day he made that guide and put this up and be like, oh, yeah, you really know when to judge. You just killed your tank on your attempts the other week in World of Logs. We could pull it up and look at it and analyze it because you just put yourself in a global cooldown instead of pre-casting your Holy Light on your tank when he's about ready to get hit with Soul Reaper. Fucking retard. That's why you fucking don't use Judgment. Because even if you think I've been doing this for years. Shatter's been raiding for years on Warmane. Years and years and years. And he finally comes out with this guide. You're still stupid. Just because you wrote a guide and you've been playing for years, experience don't mean shit if you can't back up what you're saying and it doesn't make any fucking sense. His guide got completely shit on for about the first 5, 6, 7, 8 pages with stuff like this, where he just totally fails to realize what the hell he's talking about. And then you can back it up with proof from his World of Logs. This is why I hate when World of Logs went away, because stuff like this. I mean, you're fucking retarded. You just put yourself into a global cooldown and your tank's dead. GG. How else do you explain this dumb shit?
Very one-dimensional and very primitive indeed. It is what it is. It's exactly like, thank God we have World of Logs, and maybe we can touch upon another subject, something that also kind of builds upon what we were talking about, the Discords, all the discussions in the Discords, and just the amount of garbage and stupidity there is. I'm gonna show shows something that you have on Warmain, actually, right? This is currently on Warmain. It exists, and it can be used. Now, check this out, guys. I'm going to zoom it out because, maybe you don't see that good. So, for example, ICC, Sindragosa, chill to the bones. Someone made a report. This is a report system, right? When something breaks, something doesn't work, you can make a report. Hey, this does not work. I'm going to make a report. And here is what the guy says. There is a full debuff resist application because it doesn't work. You shouldn't be able to, it's not possible to partially resist the tick damage. On Sindragosa, for example, if you're a rogue and you're hitting the boss, eventually you will start building up stacks of a debuff, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and when you reach 7, you gotta stop auto-attacking or any kind of DPS, rather. You just stop DPS, you need to drop the stacks because the more you DPS, the more you hit, there's a chance that you're gonna get too much stacks and you're gonna be taking too much damage and essentially kill yourself and die. It's kind of like thorns. Think about it like thorns, kinda, right? And the guy explains you shouldn't be able to partially resist. And then here is the big part that I'm pointing on the screen right now. They're pointing to World of Logs. Now, for those that don't know, or maybe they don't remember, they need their memory refreshed, World of Logs is what came before Warcraft logs. We still have original logs. Think about Insidia, think about Nihilum, think about Paragon maybe, or Wotlk, or, some of the guild names that were popular back. Sorry, Funky?
Method. We're using methods logs. I think Stars was up there too.
Yeah, Stars, exactly. These are the names of the guilds that were popular back in the day. And we still have all of these logs from back in the day saved, perfectly saved, cocooned in a digital form, and we exactly know how much damage, what kind of damage, what could be resisted, how much DPS were people doing, and stuff like that. How much damage would this do? How much damage would that do? And we know what would happen in the patch 335, right? Exactly, the last patch, the 335, not 3.3, not 3 point something, 335, right? And the guy pulls up logs and makes the report in exactly in a nice, really nice form and explains, hey, this is the retail log. When they speak about retail, they mean for back in the day. And he nicely, in a really good way, explains everything and shows, like, here it is, Feral and the Rogue taking damage, and he explains it. Hey, what's going on? What's happening here? Why is this not correct? You need to look into this. There's partial resist, the damage being taken is not correct, etc, 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 right? So that's kind of a tool that other private servers didn't have. Like, let's say Elysium or something like that. I don't know. They didn't necessarily have all of these values, like exact values, to the point of where if this can be partially resistant or not, and if so, is it, how much damage is it doing, and this and that, and all of the small intricacies of every single boss fight. They didn't have these tools. So when someone says private servers are garbage, you don't learn anything there, they could not be more wrong, because there's been years and many thousands of hours that people spent comparing actual World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King logs from the last patch to whatever was in private servers. And they kept pushing for it. Hey, we want the best product that we can get. Fix this, fix this, fix this. This is not correct. This is not correct. We know exactly who is doing what, how much, and where. We have the logs. Now, World of Warcraft's website itself, it went down. But you still have Wayback Machine. That's the same way we access elitist jerks. Once again, elitist jerks are in some scenarios are spotty, but they have so much information, specifically protection paladins. What do you think? Where are your content creators going to get their information from? Of course it's going to be elitist jerks. None of these Muppets have any two brain cells to come up with anything else, because nothing else has been worked upon. A lot of it stems from elitist jerks. A lot of it stems from old World of Logs encounters that we have saved, and this is also the big difference between Wrath of the Lich King private servers and TBC private servers. TBC private servers didn't have this much information. TBC private servers didn't have this much theory crafting. I'm sorry, but if you think that TBC private servers are on the same level as Wrath, it's not true. I'm not saying you didn't have good private servers that emulated TBC. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you didn't have enough exact data that you can compare, and specifically even so for vanilla. Anyway, Funky, I know you're zealous about this topic. So,
yeah, it's something I see a lot on the private server, or not the private server, the classic server discussions. Is anyone who plays private server, they're pretty much dismissed on these classic discords. But well, look what happened with TBC. Look at what happened with TBC, etc., etc., etc. And it's like, guys, you got to understand something here. And there's a huge misconception about this. TBC private servers, and I started playing private back in 2011. Pretty much, I went from Cataclysm to doing Firelands and, quitting Cataclysm halfway through and coming to private. And back then, from 2011 to all the way till now, TBC has never been popular. It was popular for maybe about a year or two, but it still never had the population that Vanilla Private did or Wrath Private did. And as the years have gone on, it's gotten even less and less and less and less. You look at what Warmane did. Warmane launched they had 2 servers for TBC. And with what, I'm not even sure if they made it a year. I can't recall. I think it might have just barely made it a year. And they ended up shutting them down. They went from 28,000 players according to their numbers, which we know are skewed, which are wrong, but whatever. That's a story for another day. Still, they were popular. I played on them just to see how many people were there. There were quite a few people playing there, but it just rip. Why is that? Because TBC, it's hard to script because it's a shot in the dark. Like Fark said, you don't have a lot of logs to compare stuff with. You can't go back and look at it, blah blah blah. Whereas vanilla was pretty well scripted, fairly close to retail, and it has been. They've just been using the same core over and over again on different private servers, for the most part at least. Where TBC was just never properly flushed out, and it was never, for whatever reason, even though it's a great expansion and one of my favorites, probably right behind Wrath, it just never caught on the private scene. So there were not anywhere near the amount of skilled players playing TBC and theory crafters playing TBC that there were playing on Wrath. Plus, like Fark said, we had world of logs to compare our stuff with. We could go and look, okay, this spell is doing this means the spell power coefficient is correct, or it's doing the proper amount because it's being added this way, or it's doing the improper amount because it's being multiplied instead of added, or added instead of multiplied, vice versa, whatever. And we could suss things out a lot more and figure them out and figure out the problems, create proper bug reports, and showcase exactly where that happened, why it's like this, etc., etc. For example, there was a thing where the spell power coefficient of Wild Growth for the tick was way off. Not way off, it was a little bit off, but we could tweak tiny little things like that with World of Logs. Without World of Logs, which TBC never had, it's a shot in the dark. You don't exactly know what you're doing. You're kind of guessing at Blue Post and using
patch notes, maybe.
Yeah, patch notes. Which, just to stop real quick and talk about patch notes. Well, Funky, why aren't they accurate? Why can't you use patch notes? Why aren't they as accurate? Well, for example, look at Gift of the Earth Mother and go find me anywhere on the internet the exact patch note before Gift of the Earth Mother got nerfed in patch 3.3. It's not out there. I know what it is. You can go look it up on Elitist Jerks. You gotta dig and dig and dig and dig and dig to find it. But it's out there. That information it's super, super scarce. There is no blue post about it. You won't find anything from the official Blizzard on what changed on it. I know what changed. It went from 20% down to 10% when you go 5 of 5 in your haste, which is what made Restoration Druids in general that play Resto, have to go for a lot more haste in order to hit GCD cap. So those things, so posts like that, blue posts and stuff like that aren't 100% accurate. They're not going to give you everything you need to know. But yeah, the private server scene, at least in Wrath, has been a lot more accurate than the private servers ever have been in TBC. So all these classic discords that are talking about shitting on private server players, man, you guys don't understand. you really don't understand the difference between TBC and Wrath. They think they're the same. Look, TBC is way closer to vanilla than it ever was to Wrath. Wrath is, to me, it's kind of a one-off thing. I mean, you look at all the changes they did in Wrath, and it's nothing like TBC. It's nothing like vanilla. It's nothing like Cataclysm, because Cataclysm, they just threw, as we talked about earlier in this podcast, just a ton of changes out on the table. So you got to really understand that it's not the same. It has a lot bigger player base. It's been a lot more sussed out. We've had chances to look at the old logs, compare them. We know what we're looking at. We know what we're looking for. We know what's best, what's not, etc., etc. So this whole notion that private server players on TBC sucked balls, yeah, I get it. They sucked balls, whatever. But that's not going to be the same case with Wrath. I mean, there's still going to be people who suck balls, but not as many. I guarantee you that it's not going to be as much as what pretty much everyone on TBC was wrong. So, and not saying the big influencers won't be, you know, people like you talked about, Fark, like Gnev and whatnot. Those people are still going to be wrong, and they don't know what they're talking about. But I think there's more people who actually could do the proper theory crafting and could show you stuff in Wrath versus there ever was in TBC on private.
Yeah, for sure. And my point was also that the people that can actually do the proper theory crafting, they are not your mainstream people. And most likely they won't be until we are 1 year into Wrath or something else, like maybe even a year and a half. I don't think there's going to be a lot of actual spotlight onto the people that know what they are doing about theory crafting or any kind of knowledge sharing. I mean, recently, you know, I had a guy in one of my raids who played dual wield Unholy, and he was talking about Gnemo and, you know, how Gnemo made guides for DKs and stuff like that. He was talking about your dual wield DK this and two-handed this. I don't know. You can even talk about Gnemo. You can maybe get him a shout out if you want, Funky.
Yeah, I've raided with Nemo for years. We've for like 10 years, so yeah.
Yeah, so he pretty much is very well experienced and very well versed and knowledgeable Death Knight player. And it's those people that you want to like talk to and go to, and, you know, maybe create a circle of people around, and hey, what do you do here, what do you there, what's your opinion on this? And that doesn't mean that you should listen to these people religiously, follow them like they're pariahs or something like that, or treat them like they're messiahs. No, but, you know, if you're going to listen to anyone, then at least start there. That's a good starting point. Let's see what Gnemo has to say about DKs. Why don't we not listen to someone who is yapping their mouth on Discord? And that's the issue. A lot of people have questions and they don't know where to go. That's the biggest issue. They're the people that actually have the knowledge and the information about this game, that know how to play this game, that are not full of shit like Brian Birmingham, the classic lead developer who's Twitter, right? People who are actually worth something and do it for the passion, for the love of the game as a hobby. They are not getting the spotlight because they are not chasing the spotlight, right? And that's kind of the paradox that we find ourselves in. That this current moment is like actually the people who you should be asking these questions, you don't know that they even exist. And then you get wannabe Slim Shadys. None of the real ones are gonna stand up. You get the wannabes copy pasting something that Gnemo said. You know what I mean? And then they'll get the spotlight on a different guy's video or something like that. And it's a copycat of a copycat, so it's a broken phone. So you know, oh yeah, snapshot haste on the gargoyle. Yeah, okay, and I accept that. What about weapon speeds? What about enchantments? What's the difference between the different enchants? When you should be using which enchant? You know, once you start digging, you get into nitty and gritty. You know, what about these enchants on your gear? What about gems? What about wraith comps and stuff like that? How you should treat all of this? None of this. Nobody is gonna mention that because they have no clue. They don't know what to talk about. They really don't. They have no experience raiding. That all they can do is regurgitate and yell from top of their lungs, DSEC. Bring more holy paladins. Bring more protection paladins. And just spam DSEC, right? That's their answer to every single situation. Just keep spamming DSEC. Brings 6 D-Sacks, 7 D-Sacks, Divine Sacrifices. Bring 7 Divine Sacrifices and just have full rotation of them permanently. And that's gonna fix every single problem. That's not how you play the game. That's like having training wheels on a car, and eventually you're a grown person and you're driving around the town and you still have your training wheels on a car. That's not how you play the game. That's not how. If you're a really enthusiastic person, individual that treats this game as their hobby, and you really care about this game, and you really care about having a good time performing and sharing this experience with others, not just logging in for the sake of logging in, but actually achieving something, doing something, performing. Treating it a little bit like esport, not super sweaty, but just treat it a little bit like esport. Treat it with respect that the RPG it is. Treat it with the respect of understanding the numbers. And that respect for the numbers is gone. The passion for the numbers is not there, right? Everyone is chasing this, oh yeah, parse this, parse that. But even the parses currently in TBC, like, if you look at it, the current parses, the optimization that you do, it's not the same as Wrath. It's two different worlds, and I think most of the things that are going to happen in Wrath and most of the optimizations that you need to do as a player are going to be very difficult for most people. For most people that are coming into Wrath, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be a thorny road. You're going to have to go through months of garbage and bullshit until you actually find out, okay, what should I be doing as a warlock? Okay, what should I be doing as a hunter? What should I be doing as a tank? I mean, there is not a single tanking guide, because there is not a single tank that has 2 brain cells that is uploading anything, right? It's impossible to make a guide for a tank, because you need to talk about fundamentals, movement, jump turning, cooldown usage. First of all, if you don't have communication, you will never be a good tank. That's someone I probably never heard anyone say that. Actual good communication and preparation for the set raid is like the biggest thing, of course, alongside of your reactions and stuff like that. Yeah, Funky, your input.
I would say Saleya hit the nail on the head with this. This is in the EJ Discord. If you go to the announcement section, at the very top, she says, and this holds true, World of Warcraft is a fairly theoretical game where lots, if not all, the questions it asks can be solved through mathematics. I would implore that upon people when they are trying to figure out who to believe, what to believe. Look for the math. Ask for the math. Delve deep into it. If you're if you're just a casual person, fine. We've discussed that before. This isn't really for the casual player. We're talking about min-maxing, doing the best possible, pushing yourself to the limit. The game is mathematics. A lot of it is. And these people who push these agendas and these ideas, it's funny when you actually push them on showing you the math on things. And some of them can come up with some wild numbers. For example, who was it? Aubie says that main hand damage, or I have to pull up the exact thing, but it says something about main hand miss chance on a rogue is 27% and the offhand is 17%. Like, they can show you some mathematical things, but check it. Take it to somebody who knows the class and double check it. Because chances are, if somebody does give you math, it's wrong. There's so much wrong math floating out there as well. And if you have the capabilities or you understand how to do the mathematic side of Wrath or WoW in general, double check it yourself. See if it comes out right. Because chances are, a lot of the times, it doesn't. So, yeah, I would implore you to understand that the game is very mathematically based and to double check the math on it.
And I would even touch upon this. I would say, even if you're more casual, listen, you're going to reach a point, might be Hodir in Ulduar, where you're going to have to do more DPS. And you're going to have to think through a mathematical lens. And math can be positioning as well. Like, it doesn't have to be like necessarily numerical. It could be geometrical as well. How I'm going to position myself, right? It's a real-time 3-dimensional simulated world. So if you want to do more damage on Hodir because you want to, get the satchel, not the satchel, get the spoils, get the hard mode, which is killing him under, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 2 minutes. It should be around about 2 minutes, minute and a half, something like that. It depends on the servers. I played on like the last 3 servers, had complete different freaking timers. But even then, like, if you want to improve, there's always something that you can do to improve, and that's the beautiful thing of it. You can improve it if you think yourself. Like, I think my best advice for every single player is think for yourself as much as you can. Look at the room, look at the boss encounter, and try to think what you can do better in terms of positioning. This is why I also made that Tor video about positioning. I think I'm going to make more of those videos in the future. I think a lot of people underestimate positioning so much. So much. Positioning is so valuable. I think a lot of people just ignore it and throw it out of the water. Just think what you can do, not just in terms of positioning, preparation. What can you do in terms of gear? Are you enchants optimized? Can you optimize your hit rating in such way where you get a little bit more spell power, for example? Just an example once again, right? What can you do to optimize your gear? Are you pre-potting? What kind of pot are you using and why? Is there any other consumable that you can optimize? You're eating Fish Feast. Is Fish Feast optimal for you? Right? Fish Feast is usually what everyone does. Everyone eats Fish Feast because you get both AP and SP, right? Maybe is there a different thing that you could do? Like, for example, if you're approaching armor penetration cap, would armor penetration food give you the cap? Is it the DPS increase? Simulate it, see what happens. See what happens if you do get a little bit of extra armor penetration cap. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do that can improve the way you're performing in game. And it's not just about you having a bigger EP or something like that. Sometimes you're going to hit a wall and you're going to have to go through the wall and you're going to have to perform better. Unless you already are, performing your mathematical best, you will never hit the wall in that scenario, right? But most of the player base is going to hit the wall eventually. There's going to be some kind of a wall. Maybe it could be just, performing better on certain strategy and reacting, aka piloting better. But a lot of the times, that same piloting and theory crafting not really theory crafting, but personal min-maxing, right? Also, don't follow the BIS lists blindly. Understand your stat weight. If you're a caster, you're a mage or a warlock or elemental shaman, understand how much value does spell power have. Haste, crit, hit. Understand all of these values. Don't just blindly follow a BIS list. Okay, that's my BIS. Chest drops with spell crit. Well, not spell crit, it's just crit haste and bunch of spell power, 2 sockets that are red or something like that. And fuck it, it's not my best. Hold your horses, buddy. Double check it. Is it an upgrade that you can incorporate in your current set? Are you sure you're gonna get the chest token that soon? Might take you 3 weeks. You could be having immediate performance increase if you enchant it and gem it, and maybe you would swap the gloves. Just an example, right? There's a lot of stuff like that every raider can do or think about. So following these BIS lists or listening to these videos, it will get you to a certain point. It's a start. More than likely, it's a shit start. It's a really bad start. You're gonna get a bunch of misinformation. Gonna be like these pointless tier lists, and now recently, as of late, it's meta to shit on tier lists. I guess we were loud enough that apparently the meta is to shit on tier lists as well. And then you shit on tier lists, you upload your own tier list, and then you make your still make yourself look like a complete retard. But yeah, Funky, I think we have quite a bit of content on this one. We do have a Q&A section, by the way, Funk. We actually have a question about healers. We have a question from the audience about healers. That I think it's going to be mostly for you. I don't think I'm going to be answering this one. I think you can pick this answer. If you have a question for the podcast, by the way, since we're recording this live, drop your question in the chat right now. You can drop your chat. I've seen all of your messages, guys. We're just super focused on the podcast, since we kind of do want to record it and leave it on YouTube in a such format where it has a good flow. But if you do have a question, even for those who are listening on YouTube or those who are live in the chat right now, drop your question in the chat, drop your question in the comments. If you have any comments, any questions, feel free to share them. Do it. Very much, this is an open discussion. This is a forum for everyone. And there's no gatekeeping here. But once again, there is the warning on every start of the episode. If you're a trash content creator, you will be triggered. There is a question in the chat. Are you going for server first with your pug? And monkey emoji. If I was serious about actually building a roster and preparing and whatnot, hey, I would join the fray. Why not? Maybe we would try something, just for the sake of having fun. I don't think, it would be like super crazy insane, but let's say in theory, if I would have other 24 people, that would show up and they would know what they're doing, hey, we'll join the race. We'll see how it goes. More than likely we wouldn't win, but just for the sake of having fun, for the sake of participating, it would be fun. But there's nothing prepared for Frostmourne 3 now. Currently, what we're on Frostmourne 3, we're just pretty much raiding for fun. It's just doing the reps, man, just enjoying the content, enjoying playing a different class, a different spec, just enjoying meeting new people. It's fun meeting new people, especially when, it gets kind of stale. And that's what's fun when you're pugging, kinda. You kind of get to meet new people. You have both bad and amazing experiences. You have some worst experiences that you're gonna ever have, which I'm used to. And then you have some really good experiences. You meet some new cool people, Maybe, you want to stay in touch with them. Maybe in the future you want to, play with them again. So it's kind of fun from that point of view. It's a little bit less repetitive than playing in a guild. It's less stable, but less repetitive. So it has its, ups and downs. So it's kind of like that. But yeah, no, we're not doing server first as a pug. No, we're not. And also for the comment about resources, maybe in the future it will be included. Maybe we're gonna shout out in the future certain theory crafters, and not necessarily content creators, but certain theory crafters that have contributed quite a bit and have been contributing. Maybe we'll redirect you towards them, rather, or in their direction, so that you can consume their knowledge and content in a such way where it's going to be beneficial for everyone. Maybe they even decide to become a content creator. Anyway, Funky, do you have anything else you would like to add before we do the Q&A?
No, we can do that.
All right. And the broadcasting team is going to pull up the question for Funky. Funky, this is your specialty, my friend. Here comes a question from Akril. Akril says, my question is, how good is Discipline Priest for all tiers of rat raiding and compare it to Resto Shaman? I'm trying to decide between those two specs for Classic. Once again, how good is Disco Priest for all tiers and compared to Resto?
For whatever reason, to me, it comes down to how good you are at the game. I know a lot of people are gonna poop on Resto Shamans in early tiers, but I would say from tier 9 on in, they're really good. And if they're played properly in tier 7 and tier 8, they can also be good. The thing that holds them back is the thing that holds other classes back as well, though, is the haste. Because they really do need a lot of haste rating to get a lot better. And whereas, something like a Resto Druid can hit haste cap, even in tier 7. Getting to an acceptable amount of haste for Resto Shaman it's going to take a lot, even to cap lesser healing wave is 1269 haste. So I think that's why they kind of get frowned upon in early tiers. Disc Priest, you can go without a Disc Priest. I know everyone is going to hype Disc up, and Disc really only has one fight where it is absolutely mandatory, and that is Lich King, of course, because you can avoid the infest mechanic altogether. But other than that, Disc is going to have its fights where it's completely and utterly useless or just not really needed. Yogg Saron. I mean, you can even really kind of say, even on Algalon, Vlithra Dreamwalker, Gunship, Deathbringer Saurfang, just fights where they're just not really either there, or even Anubarak. They're just not going to do well, or they're not going to do anything whatsoever, because that is to me, it's not a healer. It's in a class of its own. It's in mitigation. But if you're looking at something that's probably going to be taken at least from tier 7 all the way to tier 10, also include Halion in that list of Disc not being used, I would probably say Disc, just because everyone's going to be using it. If that's what you want to play, if that's what you're hoping to get taken as, because I would assume from what I know and from what I've seen, the majority of players will not be taking Resto Shaman in early tiers. They will be taken later, but definitely not early. They're probably going to be forced to play Enhance early.
I think you can take one for the 25, man. I think it's
I mean, if you're talking a normal 5 heal comp or even a 4 heal comp for a more casual guild, they're not bad. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use them. I think in the right hands of a capable player, absolutely. But those are very few and far between.
Yeah, correct. It's very hard to pull it off when you got like almost no haste and you're just sitting there and your heals are taking an eternity to cast. Yeah, it's true very much. What do you think about skill differences and how hard is it to be? Okay, let's not say good. How hard is it to be like an average Resto Shaman versus an average Disco Priest? Which cap is easier to achieve in terms of skill?
Oh, it's Disc is much easier than playing Resto Shaman properly. Well, I mean, they're both. To be average, your average Resto Shaman's probably just going to chain heal. Your average Disc is probably just going to be using shield most of the time. I mean, so I wouldn't say it's really hard, because a lot of people will just use, a couple spells. They really won't open the whole toolkit, so to speak. So they're both, I would say they're probably both on par to be average, but Disc is probably going to take you further as far as on the meters and how you're perceived, just because of how absorption works and how it's recorded, versus RNG with a chain heal. So
yeah, on the Monday you might be first, on a Tuesday you might be last.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, true. Plus, I guess both are useful in terms of buffs and stuff like that. And raid cooldowns, both, you have pain suppression, you have healing him, mana him. You can even Shadow Fiend to get mana back. Offensive Dispel, defensive Dispel, it's all on the board. So that's good from the Priest. And then, I guess, I don't know, you got Purge, but Interrupt is a little bit hard to land because of spell hit. I know we had those issues in the back in the day when we were doing stuff and we had no hit on the Chamois, and he was our only interrupter on a certain target that could do it, and we had some issues. With hit would sometimes miss, and the cast goes through, and you're yikes, it shouldn't have gone through and stuff like that. So yeah, you can interrupt, but it's hard because you can't do it reliably. Ellie does it much better. You got Monetized Totem, you got Bloodlust, you got the Elementals. As Funky mentioned earlier, if you're going to be talking about anyone doing DPS, it's probably going to be Resto Shaman, because you can just drop the Ellie and pump out of the healers at least, right? And it's passive damage, a lot of it is passive, because it's just going to sit there and smack. It's going to have a wonderful time, wonderful experience, just smacking things. Yeah, and I think this can do that. Disco, I don't think it's going to be doing that much damage, right? You're a little bit more global heavy than Resto Shaman, if I'm right, in terms of playstyle. Especially with lower haste.
Cast Holy Fires and Smites. It's just going to take too long.
I mean, that's what you do in Kada. You cast Smites and it heals. If you remember that. They did that in Kada.
Yeah.
And I think they also did it in Mists of Pandaria, I think, where they can also smite to heal. That type of a deal. They would just constantly spam smite. You could do it even while leveling or something like that. Anyway, we have approached a whopping almost 2 hour podcast episode 5. Not as spicy as episode 4. Some people preferred mild, some people preferred hot. We tried to balance out the energy levels between episode to episode. This one was a little bit more chill, but nonetheless, still decently toxic. I'm very proud with the toxicity level we managed to bring every single episode, no matter the energy level, Funky. I think we do it the best out there.
Thank you. For sure.
Thank you very much for participating again and for making this happen, even though it's a Saturday and you gave us your evening, so you're very much appreciated for that, Funky, for being here and sharing this with everyone, even with me. Like, some of this stuff is really eye-opening, and I myself enjoy talking to Funky. He's very much a veteran of the game, veteran of the scene. When did you start on Molten, Funky?
2000. I started in 2011, but really got into it in 2012. So, 10 years.
10 years of Molten, aka Warmane. That's a lot of years. That's a lot of years just to be on that scene, man. Just to be, imagine just being on the forums for 10 years. That's already an achievement on its own. But to actually participate, to be a streamer and a YouTuber and a raider, and to be in Realm First Race on Molten and then Warmane and all of that, that's kind of almost a legacy, I would say. I mean, if fighters can have legacies, so can content creators, right? And yeah. Appreciate you on this podcast, man. Once again,
you too, man. Of course.
It's been a blast. We're on episode 5. Hey, they hate us because they ain't us, and if you love us, thank you for the support. And on that note, we're gonna see you all in the next one. Remember, questions on Discord or on YouTube comments. Thank you so much, guys, and enjoy the episode 5. Fark out.